Hello everyone and welcome to episode 84 of the Layton Fitness Podcast. Now in today's episode we'll be discussing two topics that I discussed within a YouTube video separately, but I wanted to combine the two videos together, and those two topics are what I wish I had done sooner with regards to my own training and what I wish I had done sooner with regards to my own nutrition. I think these are probably two big mistakes I see all of the time. I hope to pass on this knowledge to help prevent you from making the same mistake I did. So with regards to the training, the biggest thing I wish I had done sooner with regards to my own training would be training my weaker body parts with more frequency and more volume. This was by far one of the biggest changes I made within my own training, where I saw my physique really improve dramatically. This is the main change that really was the catalyst for that, and it makes perfect sense. If you have certain lagging body parts and then suddenly you emphasize more volume, more frequency on these particular body parts, you improve them, your physique then looks significantly more balanced. So this was the biggest change that I made personally. It's something I would suggest that you do as well. Now keep in mind, when I mention this, I'm really referring to people with at least 2 years weight training experience. People that don't have 2 years weight training experience, it's more about gaining muscle mass everywhere. You're unlikely to see weak body parts develop at that early stage. However, beyond that 2 years weight training experience, more than likely you'll start to see body parts that are more developed than others, and therefore that's really your cue to try and develop some of these weaker body parts to have more of a balanced physique. So how do you go about doing that? Now the real key is adding more volume to these weaker body parts in comparison to your stronger body parts. When I refer to volume, I'm basically referring to the total amount of work. So volume is sets times reps times load, but how that equates in the real world is basically more sets and exercises. So basically you'll be doing more exercising sets for your weaker body parts in comparison to your stronger body parts. So for me personally, my weaker body parts are shoulders, back and arms, but initially I was really focusing on shoulders and arms. The way I used to do it was basically train those particular body parts 3 times per week and then my stronger body parts twice per week. So a very simple model, training those weaker body parts 3 times a week, a little more frequency, and by default it's just easier to get more volume just because you're training those particular body parts an extra day. So to add those extra sets and exercises was relatively straightforward. So you may do something the same. You may say your chest is lagging, so you may train that more frequently than some of your body parts, maybe your legs that are lagging. But by doing this, by adding more volume to those weaker body parts, you may have to reduce some of the work you're doing for some of the stronger body parts. But that would probably be the biggest piece of information I could pass on to you. If you're beyond that 2 years weight training experience, try and come away from these generic programs and really start tailoring the program to your specific weaker body parts. Now the second thing I wanted to talk about was what I wish I had done sooner in regards to my own nutrition, and that would probably be not looking at meals and foods in isolation. And I've said this many times before, but I think this is probably the biggest error that I see all of the time. People think they're eating quote unquote healthy foods because they look at the meals and the foods in isolation. They think that's a healthy meal. If I eat that, I'm going to achieve my goals. But if your goal is fat loss, you must create that energy deficit. Otherwise you're not going to achieve your fat loss goals, regardless of how healthy you consider that particular meal or that particular food. You must be in the energy deficit, and that is at the top of the hierarchy of importance within a fat loss phase. So instead of just looking at meals and foods in isolation, I want you to look at the day's intake, the daily calorie and macronutrient figures within your actual day, rather than looking at the foods in isolation or the meals in isolation. Look at the bigger picture, because that must be in place for you to achieve your fat loss goals. Likewise, within a muscle building gaze, it doesn't matter how quote unquote healthy you consider the food you're eating. If you're not in that energy surplus, consuming more calories than you're burning, you're not going to gain muscle. So those two foundational principles, the deficit for the fat loss and the surplus calories for the muscle gain, they must be in place. So start looking at your day's intake rather than just the foods in isolation. So that probably is one thing I wish I had done sooner, and this really is, in my opinion, the biggest problem I see out there, because everyone's obsessed with quote unquote clean eating. They follow their favorite Instagram gurus, but if you're not creating that energy deficit or not creating that surplus for muscle growth, you're not going to achieve that goal, regardless of how quote unquote clean or healthy that particular food is. So that's so critical to understand. So hopefully you've enjoyed the episode, and I'll look forward to speaking to you next week. If you're still yet to download my free ebook, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, you'll see a tab at the top of the page and you can download that immediately. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Take care. Thank you very much.